All right, welcome back everyone to the FPL Script. This is season 4, episode 6. We're at the first international break of the 25-26 season. Just a time to sort of reset, have a look at some of the data viz, once again, revisit our teams, and just discuss like sort of some macro points before we do some more game week specific stuff next week for our game week 4 preview. How are you doing, JD?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. Like you said, there's just maybe revisiting some stuff, maybe see if we have something interesting to talk about, especially with players moving clubs on deadline day. Is quite a madness on deadline day, so hopefully we have some stuff to talk through.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, how was your game week as well? Game week 3?
Oh, it's quite bad. I mean, I bought Barnes, who was the only one who didn't play good minutes. I had like 6 options because I was going to wildcard anyway in Game Week 4. So I had Mbumo, I had Kudush, I had Ismail Sarr, I had Barnes, and I think I'm spacing on a couple of other names. But regardless, I just made the worst possible move. But I did not know, in all honesty, that this was even a possibility, with given the fact that Gordon got a red card. So I don't know. I mean, I was on tilt. I'm glad you are not showing the bench, because on my bench I have Diouf with
Youth? Yeah.
11 points and Goodmanson with 9 points. So this bench in Game Week 3 has outscored my bench boost in Game Week 1. So yippee!
Yeah. Although,
What about yours?
yeah. I mean, that's tough. I mean, my game was worse, right? This is actually 45 points because I took a hit. Ha ha ha. But yeah. I mean, 2 hamstring injuries. Wanted to kind of commit long term. Thought I could. Wanted to get. So, for example, like when we take hits, and I think we're solver pilled. I'm fully solver pilled. I think most often than not, you kind of know when you can commit to a line, and especially a hit, in my opinion, in this game. So yeah, I'm always willing to take a hit. I've taken hits like in multiple seasons now, and I think my data ranks
That's what I was saying.
have been
You've
like,
done it before. It's not like this is your
yeah,
first rodeo, right?
yeah,
So
it's not right. Obviously, this is the
yeah,
first time it's like where everything's gone so quickly
yeah.
to whatever. But yeah, like those 2 injuries have pretty much forced my wild card. I couldn't get anything out of Cunha. Czar, I don't know, like got a yellow card whilst getting a hamstring injury. Hilarious. Like Yok, I don't actually mind him blanking because like that's part of trying to recoup like let's say 1.7 EV on demand, right? Because
Mhm.
him doing a 95 was like 4.7. I would rather take the hit earlier than later, and I thought there was something wrong with JSL anyways. As it turns out, it is, but there's also something wrong with my future players, I guess. And yeah,
Hmm.
it obviously in hindsight looks awful. Spurs got completely crushed by Tottenham. So sorry, Spurs got completely crushed by. I'm just thinking about Daniel Levy too much, I
Bournemouth.
guess. Shout out
Yeah.
to him for leaving his job. But yeah, they got crushed by Bournemouth. And then Nottingham Forest, I actually I don't have it prepared as a slide, but I was looking at the team defensive contribution data for the start of the season, right? Where do you think Nottingham Forest ranks in terms of team defcons?
19th.
They rank 18th, right?
Oh, okay.
So
Fair enough.
but
Yeah.
but like this was the team that was supposed to be top 3, right? Um
Yeah.
so yeah, what are that? And that's it. That was a terrible game week. So let's actually move on to some content.
Yeah, before you do that, just one last thing on
Okay.
Murillo, by the way. I
Yeah.
just I, when I think of him, like I'm looking at teams around us, players
Yeah.
who play, especially they subscribe to analytics, and I see Murillo in every single team, and I'm thinking, okay, this is good. It's fine. Everyone is suffering equally. And then I look outside, like my rank is taking a hit every week, and then I
Yeah.
realize he's literally not owned by anyone else.
Yeah.
And so it's really been a bad bet for us. And I think maybe I did not realize the full extent of the bet I was taking by going against, I don't know, like Kukurea, right? I mean, I
Even
think,
Arsenal defense, right?
yeah, even Arsenal
Yeah.
defense. Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. Arsenal defense has absolutely screwed us. So, I mean, it's just a testament to how badly it's gone in the initial game weeks.
Yeah, we've almost invested into the worst possible pick in defense, really. Because like there's like 4.0s shelling
Yeah.
out like 9 points a week.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
like all the 6s have done well. All of them, like all of them have had at least one good game. Murillo's just done nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
Despite investing in Spurs and Chelsea, by the way, both of us own 3
yeah,
assets in defense, and they've kept 2 clean sheets out of 3. So it's actually should have been much better than it has turned out. And it's primarily, like you said, because Arsenal defense. And I mean, Saliba got injured in that game, and
Yeah.
ultimately they lost the clean sheet. But you can imagine what would have happened, right? They almost kept the clean sheet, and it would have been even worse if that had happened. So yeah, anyway, let's move on.
All right. So we have the season long goals and a projection trend. This isn't like the complete list of players, is it? It's more the available players.
So I filtered out players using two criteria. One criteria was, is there significant movement other than their actual returns? And then the second criteria was, obviously they have to exist in the data set, but also are they FPL relevant, sort of? Because you would see like maybe I removed Semenyo now, but when I published this graph yesterday, I had Semenyo in this. And some people were asking me rightly why I'm including Semenyo, because he went up by 1.5 across 3 weeks, but he scored 2 goals. And yes, but it's because he's risen by 0.4 in price. So I think it's sort of interesting
Yeah.
for people to just to understand how well he is progressing in market odds. So you're right. Maybe so. Which players made you think that this list maybe has players that don't have odds, or maybe we need more players?
Oh well, no. I mean, to be honest, the only one I was actually looking or thinking about was João Pedro. But I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
removed him because he's clean now. Whatever his expectations were are the current expectations are his expectations pre game week 1 plus his actual returns. So that's why I ignored him. But you're right. He would have been at the top of my list if I were also filtering for like ultra relevant FPL assets, because he's the highest owned player in the game now.
Yeah, he
So
is.
yeah, so that you're absolutely right to point that out.
Yeah. Um, but I think what's interesting is like when you look at some of the topics here, it's the ones that are still most popular for like anchoring like the future wildcard, like Yok, Salah.
Hmm. I mean,
Isak
Salah's
is
downfall is kind of scary, right? If you
yeah,
look at it,
fine.
even with 1 goal scored, it's not that great. And I
Mm,
do understand that markets are reactionary, especially for players like him, where a lot of players are betting against or other under and over. So I do understand that that causes these odds to shift a little. But at the same time, there is more credence. I think obviously we should, if we had tracked it last season, we could compare, but I did not. But my feeling is last season would not have been as volatile. I think there's more credence to the notion that with Isaac there, would it take a lot of missed penalties for them to go to Isaac? That's also a question I had, which is obviously a very very noisy question, because firstly Liverpool have to get a lot of penalties in order for that to happen, and also I don't know how much bookies consider penalties, as in what their expectations are for the season.
yeah, makes a lot of sense. But I mean, like,
Yeah,
I think most Liverpool players have just been hit, so it's like, I
yeah,
guess that whole classic argument of like the goals are being shared, yada
yeah,
yada, is
yeah,
feels relevant here. There's obviously a
exactly.
case of also like they've been pretty bad, to be honest, to start the season.
Yeah.
Like I think they're actually like bottom half of the table in terms of like NPXG. Obviously, we
Mm.
expect them to trend up, but it's like maybe there's also like even a reading of, do we think Salah's gonna get his minutes a bit more managed this season? There's an AFCON impact too, which I think is nice. So when you actually think about Salah, like I don't think he's as bad as he looks, because
Yeah.
if you take out a couple games from AFCON, he actually still looks healthy for his price point. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, of course. I was not comparing absolute
no,
numbers,
I
but you're
know.
right. It is important to point out the context that if you think that Gyökeres and Salah are moving away, the primary reason is because obviously there is always going to be those games where Salah misses out. The other interesting thing is almost all markets are now available. So you have the likes of Saka, Palmer back into this. So it's very interesting to compare impact of injuries which are limited to at least one game week, but could extend to further game weeks. Like you can see clearly on this one that someone like Palmer went from like 14.75 to 12.25, and it's not just one game, right? I think it's just the overall impact of maybe readjusting expectations. So that could also be the case with someone like Saka. I think Saka's case is a little different to Palmer's, because I think Palmer could come back potentially, right, for game week 4. But I don't know if that's going to be the case with Saka. But maybe I'm um, waffling.
Yeah, I saw some news today that apparently that he could be potentially back for Forest. This is Saka. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe they are on the same. They are on even keel right now, which makes sense then.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, like I actually thought that like Marmoush is actually kind of still at a healthy point,
That's why
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. He's sort of like converging to a point where everyone is happy with what their expectations are, and that is what we were waiting for, right? This is the true indication that we are finally starting to see more signal, and we can perhaps infer more things now from data which is 3 game weeks long now. The other interesting thing was also Stan Larson, right? You can clearly see that even though he might be back for game week 4, I think just maybe Wolves team strength has taken a hit, and as a result, his goal share has not just goal share, but obviously his projected goals have also gone down, and it is not insignificant. It's like 12.5%. So it's quite a hit that he's taken as well.
Yeah. Like his early numbers have actually been quite good, and then you have
Yeah.
some pretty nice injuries that I think help him. But he's still, yeah, like it's so hard to squeeze value for this guy until 6 really, I guess, and we
Yeah.
reassess with some sort of like understanding of what the injuries are like and whether he's like allowed to play football by Pep for more than like 70 minutes. Any other interesting things you find like maybe at the second half of the graphic compared to what we said? I think like because we've covered things like maybe like Wirtz and his numbers dropping.
Yeah, I will continue to include him. Sorry, it's just a running joke at this point. We don't need to
Fair,
keep
okay.
focusing on that, but yeah, I'm just going to include him for that. The other ones that I found interesting were actually, like you said, the only reason I included the likes of Gakpo is to showcase the impact of Isaac coming into the club. It's like you said, the goal share is the goals are being shared more than they had been. The other one I would say is Grealish, right? So Grealish, despite not scoring a single goal, has gone up because the confidence in minutes has gone up. Because you can clearly see that they are going to rely on him for majority of almost all the games. So maybe there was some uncertainty with that, and also with Dewsbury Hall, like I said last week, he did get pre-assists. So I mean, there was going to come a time where he would get actual returns, and as soon as they've come, markets have also reaffirmed their position on someone like him, which I think those returns are decent, right, at his price. I mean, I'm not going to lie, like 5
100%.
million.
He actually
Yeah.
looks like the best 5 million in the game by far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And given the fact that he's playing 90 minutes, it's just I think I mean between him and Stack is 5 million, right? Or is he
Stack is
5.5?
5 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean I would maybe again between those two, I would maybe team
Uh,
strength would be
yeah.
the deadlock breaker, and I think yeah team strength I think Everton is much better right now.
I've got a hot take on on Stack, but I'll
Stack?
probably
Okay.
go for it a little bit later. Um,
Okay. Well, final thing, Eze and Martinelli, right? So Martinelli will
yes.
not be included from next week.
Yep.
The only reason I included him is to show how much of an impact Eze's transfer has had, where he's gone from 6.75 to 3.88, and
Yeah.
that makes sense because obviously the reduced minutes and Eze coming into the team overall. So yeah, just some players that I thought had interesting trends. With also someone like Arias, right? Like you pointed out with Marmoush, I think something similar is happening with Arias, where I think markets now understand the full extent of his average minutes, and so I think they're reacting according to that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so the only thing I think that there might be a trend on is like I don't know if there's like an Everton attack trend. Maybe and Jai hasn't gone up, so maybe that's just wrong. But I don't know. Is it? Do we think it's like more Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, and Jai are all nailed, so we think they're fine, or Everton are actually finally scoring goals?
That also, yes, absolutely. Because India's goal share hasn't, goals haven't gone up more than his actual realized returns.
Hmm,
So that's why I'm hesitating to make sweeping conclusions. But at the same time, looking at Dewsbury Hall, looking at Grealish, you could say that, right? That's clearly that Everton's team goal projections may be moving in the positive direction.
got it. Yeah. All right. There's also some new goals being added. Anything interesting outside of Ekitike?
Yeah, so let me just pull up what I posted yesterday. I believe there has been significant movement even since yesterday. And I mean, we can because I think for Voltemada, for Visa, and for him, we have seen some sort of movement already inside 24 hours or maybe 36 hours. So, okay. So Ekitike was at 9.2 goals and he is now at 11. And this is inside 24 or inside 36 hours, which makes me think that despite the lack of maybe certainty that there was prior to Isaac moving to Liverpool, it still looks like they project him to have a pretty good season based on what they've seen, which is great, right? But again, the problem is like, do you buy him now? I just don't think you can, right? Unless you see some injuries in the international break.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I mean, you're talking about like what Gyoka's like double the
Yeah,
goals expected.
absolutely.
Like remaining to almost score. So yeah, it's a tough one. So did you say there was any movement on Wisa and Voltemata as well?
Yes. For Visa was at 10 point. Oh, Visa's at the same actually. Forgive me. Voltemata is the one who's changed. So Voltemata went from 10.25 to 9.5.
Ooh, okay. So more like maybe an indication of who's going to be number one to start.
Yeah, yeah. That's because when I saw the initial numbers, I was thinking this seems a little excessive.
For both, right?
21 goals between them straight off the bat without knowing how they're going to play, how they're going to set up, just seems a little iffy. At the same time, Barnes has taken a huge hit on goal projections, which makes sense because that's what they're anticipating. Someone has to suffer. And Gordon's markets are suspended, obviously, till he comes back. So once he comes back, I think we'll get the full picture of. And also by that time, Visa and Voltemada will have played 2 more games for Newcastle. So, or maybe 3 is the League Cup game. I think they should also have a League Cup game as well. So maybe 3 games till then. So we'll have a better idea of that, of what's happening.
Yeah, fair. I'd say probably, and I think a lot of us have probably noticed this already, but like Xavi Simons looks pretty, or Simons looks pretty good.
Yeah.
To be honest, as a 7 million midfielder. So, yeah, and we'll probably have a look at him at assists as well. But that's like one new signing who I think is quite impressive off the bat with his numbers.
Absolutely. And Pino, I mean, he's already injured now, so we don't need to talk about him.
Yeah.
But it would have been an interesting sort of exercise to compare what Eze lost, because we have that data before he moved to Arsenal. And then is it that a number of players have to make up that goal share, or is it that it's being primarily assigned to one player? And if I look at the data, I think what Eze was at like 5.75 or something.
He was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's Pino is what at 4.62 now, and of course now he's suspended. The markets are suspended, but he was 4.62 as of yesterday. So that's kind of interesting. Kamada has also had a slight increase, which makes me think they've sort of divided the goal share between those two.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think Sarr is also like his numbers have dropped, right? But he's been pulled from markets, maybe, or
yes, he has been pulled. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as assists, though. So I think Grealish obviously a healthy signs, and it's kind of just a reflection of what we talked about within the goals too. Like that's still nothing's like, it seems like the expectations haven't changed since he got his first 2 assists, right? It's just that they've almost added the 2 assists in. Bruno dropping, I think that's just Burnley at home. You've wasted a game. Such a good game.
That's why Dorgu's in there, by the way, just to showcase how much that Burnley game had
right.
been.
Got it.
Yeah, that fell by 0.5 after that game.
Okay. Yeah. Has Njai actually moved up in terms of goals? I'm curious. Obviously,
he has by the exact amount that he's gotten. So he's gone up by 2.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seems like maybe like what the inferring thing here is like the team plays a bit more through Grealish and Dewsbury Hall, and Njai is more of your final ball guy this season. I don't know, potentially, because his assists have dropped, right?
Yes.
So I'll just be curious to see like whether that's gonna be like a permanent-ish trend. But Palmer, Saka, we know that those drops are just injuries. Kudus, what do you think about him? Because Simons has joined the game, right? And we can talk about Simons in a moment, but do do you think like Kudus would have any impacts like in terms of like set pieces? Maybe like is he like less prone to hitting 90s now with a slightly better squad depth? He doesn't really impact Siemens. I think Siemens is more left-sided as an attacker. But I don't know if there's any like knock-on impacts where are we even thinking about like in the future maybe like Brennan Johnson is coming on as a sub on the right? Like I've thought about things like that.
Also, his number 10 share has probably dropped to 0.
True.
Could be, we were thinking of him playing at number 10 as well, and that probably is not non-existent now. At the same time, I think we need to wait for the first game.
Yeah.
So the Game Week 4 game will, I think, change things up in terms of who takes set pieces, like you said. And the other thing is, I forgot that Newcastle also play in the Champions League. So actually, we will see how Voltemado, Visa, and Gordon set up much earlier than we would have or otherwise, because Gordon misses out Game Week 4 and then immediately plays in the Champions League. So we will actually get to see how they set up against Barcelona, because that is a game where I am 100% certain that they will go with whatever they feel is the best team possible. Like there's no way they're going to rest anyone or go half committed. There's no half measures there, I think.
True. I mean, I still don't quite understand the Eze numbers. Maybe it's because they just didn't expect a lot of minutes for him, or maybe it's just moving to a better team. But I just don't know how he's going to get that many minutes for Arsenal. Maybe it's just the whole left wing piece. But I would think even coming out of the Liverpool game, it's like him not even starting that match was a bit confusing to me. And maybe
he has to be like one of the fittest players out of preseason, given the fact that he played Community Shield, he played the first game. No, yeah, he did, right? The first game of the qualifier, and he played all the Premier League games as well.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. That stumped me. I can understand the first game because there's like some time you maybe need some sessions before you actually can start. But I think the Liverpool game was absolutely primed for him to play. So I'm very. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, like you said, these numbers should actually be lower based on that. But for now, I was thinking that it's just that is the team strength increase.
Yeah.
So you go from 5.75 for 38 games to 7 for 34 games, 35 games. But at the same time, there's also the added factor of reduced minutes. So we have to maybe monitor this for a couple of weeks and come back to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one thing to almost add on that is people are probably still way too pessimistic about Arsenal as an attack. Like, they're still very, very good. And I know the takeaway from a game like Liverpool is they're diabolical and, you know, like 10 of this, 10 of that. But okay, Liverpool were pretty bad that game in open play. Let's be honest here.
They were.
Yeah. Rodgers, look, Villa's. Do you think they're the worst team this season? Like just like in terms of like
expectations.
Yeah, 100%. Like I feel like I remember looking at 11-5's model projections for the start of the season for points, right? Which is basically just a reflection as well of your team rating, I guess. They were like 5th or 6th, and they're now 11th on the team rating. Not 11th in terms of like where they are sitting on the table, because obviously they've lost the points, but it's more that their underlyings must have been so bad that their team rating is now 11th in the Prem. Like, we're now talking about Aston Villa as if they were a bottom half team on team strength, which is crazy. But yeah, there you go. And that's Morgan Rodgers benefiting from that, or disbenefiting rather.
Absolutely. The other interesting one in this is Mbumo. And I think that is a result of him now being on corners. Because I think there would have been some uncertainty with, okay, he's taken it for one game, but how do we see him like progressing? And he's definitely taken them in every single game from one side. And so I think that's why they're not going down. Because I think it's just the adjustment of, okay, he's going to be on corners from one side. So, and also maybe some slight increase in assist share for at least 1 or 2 games with Kuna, the uncertainty with Kuna. So that might also be driving this.
Yeah. Minte, there's not been too much movement, so I feel okay skipping through him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. But also at the same time, you do feel less uncertain, right? Like
True.
if
Yeah.
markets are that confident about a player like him, I do understand that they are not like the greatest projections for players, but at the same time, he is dirt cheap, right? So
Hmm.
if you want to go there, then I mean, I don't see why. But again, he goes during AFCON, so you need to also consider that you will get
Right.
5 free transfers, but then yeah, so
Wow. I was actually thinking about this, and yeah, but I guess that already just makes him better than Matoma, right?
yeah, that's what I was saying, absolutely,
Wow.
because
Wow. Okay.
they
Okay.
have much more confidence in him than they do
Yeah.
with someone like Mitoma.
Can I just say, I just think I like on review in Solio, Matoma is basically a god.
Hmm.
I don't get it. I personally do not understand it. I look at his career underlyings and I think they're amazing. I understand it. This is a guy who's like what 0.28, 0.3
Yeah.
for his whole career. I still don't get it personally. It seems like the markets are with us. I could be wrong. But yeah, he just seems like someone who I can't reconcile his numbers so well.
I might go one step further. Having a hard time reconciling Brighton's numbers.
Hmm. Yeah.
Let's be honest about that.
Can I
And
say
it's
something?
nothing to do with the team, right? It's
Yeah.
just individual share in within the team.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Sorry.
O'Reilly's gone as well, and none of the numbers
Yeah.
have moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I saw that.
so I guess that just means Gruda has benefited. But I remember O'Reilly was on like 7, 8 goals. So it like I almost yeah, I don't understand the Brighton team rating corresponding to almost like what I think the markets would be implying for season goals for a team like
Hmm.
this. And it just is a tricky one.
Yeah, I think one to watch, I think for sure. But again, the problem is I keep mentioning this. We don't have the luxury of that in FPL, right? We
We
have to make
don't.
a
No, we
decision
don't.
now.
No, we don't.
So
Yeah.
unfortunately, you have to take a gamble on if you think they're going to go down, you have to bet against it. And I, for one, I'm certainly looking forward to betting against it. And I'm as am I for someone like Forest Defense, right? As a whole. And again, you can look at the number of players that they've bought and think about if minutes are going to be reduced for players like Nico Williams. But if you're telling me now that they're 18th from the first 3 games on defensive contributions as a team, I don't know, man. It's not looking good.
Yeah. I mean, Reinders still looks good, which is a positive, right?
Yep.
Um,
That's my propaganda for the season. I have two propagandas for the season. One is Reinders, the second is words. It's just I'm just going to keep including them in every single graphic, even though there's nothing to talk about between like gaming through 2 and 3. It's just he's just there, right? It's the markets are very very bullish on him.
yeah. Hmm. Dewsbury Hall, that's just impressive, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
what do you,
off the
what,
back of one assist, right? So that's why I included him. It's again, I just feel like there's just more confidence in how many minutes he's playing and what kind of role he's playing. And now I do understand that he's not going to play a number 10. It's I think it's just the team dynamic as well, which is probably playing a part. And it makes sense. So that's the whole bet people had to make before game week 1 or prior to game week 3, which someone like FPL Critic did by buying Dewsbury Hall in game week 3. Which I mean, like you said, there are not many midfielders who are better than him price efficiency wise at that price. So
yeah.
this is just more reinforcement to buy him if you want a midfielder at that price.
Yeah. And to be fair, on that point too, like with Stack, right? Like, I think Stack's value is going to purely come from DEFCON and then set pieces, right? So
Yeah.
he's like baby Anderson. Um, he's literally averaging like 7 point something DEFCON a game. Which is
Anderson is averaging 11 def cons a game,
yeah. So
and we can
they're both
remember that
down on their averages, right, and career
yeah,
numbers.
despite
But I,
playing more minutes, right, for
yeah,
Anderson, because Anderson has played more minutes than we thought he would, which
yeah,
is maybe a skill issue on our part.
and like if you look at Brun, for example, like, and he's given us some great insight, right? Like, I think Stack's also not playing in the position on the pitch where you actually would expect him to get a lot of defensive contributions, the midfielder. Like, one thing to mention, for example, is like there's some midfielders who are more tilted to getting recoveries, right? So, for example, like the deeper on the pitch you get, like you tend to get more recoveries. I think like Rodri is a good example of that. Like most of his CBRIT comes from recoveries, whereas it's like less clearances, blocks, and interceptions, those kind of things, tackles even.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Stack is someone who I think is similar to that, where you're expecting recoveries from him, and if he's not like doing so much of that, then it's tough with the season, because I think this is our first year experiencing this, and I don't know if this is going to stay the same for next year. But it almost feels like you have to get married to some career-long data, but how quickly do you jump off of that if someone's not performing like against their career baselines for a couple of matches, right?
Absolutely. And I think for something like defensive contributions, we do need to explore two avenues. One avenue is obviously a good data model, which is giving you expected value.
Yeah.
And the second avenue, I think, is what you are trying to look into, which is maybe team level numbers. And
Yeah.
if that helps us understand something, because the transformation in Forest defenders has been incredible, right? Who would have thought this was going to be the case after 3 game weeks? That none of the Forest defenders has any one of them. Aina hit
Aina,
defensive
yeah.
contributions, I think, in 1 game, right? That's
Yep.
it. I don't think anyone has done that since then. And Anderson, okay. I mean, to be fair, Anderson is incredibly unlucky. It could have easily been like 12 and 9. So, and if that had happened, no one would have been complaining about it. So, I'm not going to count that. But again, overall, I think the fact that they're 18th is just, I'm still astonished by that fact. The only reason I gave you that answer was it because it was a leading question, right? The reason you asked me is I probably knew that they were going to be at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it feels like it, certainly, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, even when you look at some of the other teams, like a team like Brentford, for example, like Vandenberg has hit defense contributions 3 weeks in a row, right? So that already tells you that there's really a defender there, like doing good. And he's like, unfortunately, that's like double a Nottingham Forest defender at this point. Like Milenkovic and Murillo, like, you know, combined to get like 12 a week, or so they think. But yeah, that's part of it too, is like opponents. But then I think you can also chart like, you know, how they did versus the same opponents so thus far, right? Compared to last season, and that already would still tell a similar-ish story, which is unfortunate for us who've invested into that. But you know, my concern, I guess, is like there are some picks. So, for example, like let's say like we always like looking at XG numbers, right? Because it's pretty predictive for the future. In a lot of the open play numbers, because of course it's like it's not binary, like whether you're on set pieces or not, or whether you're on penalties or not. But I think with defensive contributions, it's like it almost is like, once again, another binary thing. It feels like if there's like a team style shift, and you really think that that's like a potentially going to be like a trend, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, binary in the sense that are they going up or down?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think people need to understand that you can't look at it in the binary sense of 12 plus or 12 minus, because that is a ridiculous thing to look at. But you're right, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like for example, like Anderson, I think, you know, last season, like per start was something like maybe like 14-ish?
Yeah, 14 or 15, I think. Yeah, 14 to 15, yeah.
So yeah, like even 11 is actually quite a significant drop off, right?
Yeah, because like 15 is supposed to be your 50% number. It's not even your like maximum number. The maximum number I remember is like 22 or 24 from him.
Yeah, like
which still happen.
Well, yeah, which Caicedo has done, for example, within one of the matches so far. But that's kind of what you expect over time, right? Caicedo's hit like 4 out of 6 points, and he's averaging like 14 still this season, and Anderson's averaging like 11. So I don't know. Bruno's done great. You know, Dango is at 11. Those are the kind of numbers we're like thinking about for some of these players. But
so, before we move on, last 2 things, and we don't need to talk much about it, but Truffert is the only reason I included him is Wildcard. If you were looking between him and Senesi, I think the fact that he stayed at 3 plus assists for the season despite not getting any is, I think, a good indication that there is some underlying numbers that they are considering markets. And then the other one is Guardiola is back, at least on numbers. So interesting to see how that's going to impact City in Game Week 4.
Yeah. And you know, rest in pieces to Barnes and
Yeah,
Saka, I guess.
absolutely.
In terms of people being added, I think the only one to call out is Bob, because I think we expected Simons to have good numbers here, or Simons, or
Yes.
even
Yeah.
Pino as well. Like the Elliott numbers feel lowish, but then we just need to see how his minutes pan out.
Minutes.
I don't have
Yeah.
much to say on him until he
Yeah.
we see. But Bob's played 90, 71, 90 so far.
Yeah.
So impressive, right? And Cherky's injured too. Foden's out.
Yep.
Savio's still out, but we probably think he'll be back in the future. That's just positive for Bob in the immediate.
Let me quickly check something. Was Savio included in the UCL squad?
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Havertz was included in the UCL squad, but it's like that's not an indicator of anything, right? Like he's had
No.
knee surgery, but yeah.
Absolutely. No. But what I mean by that is he being reintegrated, or are they just going to leave him aside because he wanted to leave in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Pep's blocked that exit, right? But then
That's also true. Yeah,
I don't know.
He is. Yeah, he's in the squad.
He's in the squad. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Have we heard from him since?
No, no.
I don't think so, right?
No.
But he's in training now, apparently, which I think is massive, right? And obviously we just talked about Bob, so that's yeah. Goodbye to Bob as well. No, I'm kidding. But what do we have here in terms of a midfield graphic? This is like the kind of update that you've done for us is just showing all the new Premier League players, right? Highlighted in yellow.
Yeah, the ones highlighted in yellow are all the new players. So again, I don't know why Stack. I think Stack's just a remnant from when I was trying to show that he's pretty high on defensive contributions. But if you ignore him, I think the two big ones are towards the bottom, and those are Florentino and Magasar. So Florentino I knew because I have been modeling Champions League Fantasy
Benfica,
and Benfica, and his ball recovery numbers are insane. Even though again the UCL has a different system, so let's not go into that. But his recovery numbers on FBref, which are counted here, unlike UCL Fantasy, is absolutely monstrous. And I am very interested to see if Burnley's playing style is going to affect that, because he should be impervious based on how he plays. But if he does, then I think we need to give more credence to your hypothesis that we should primarily be looking at team defensive contributions and opposition defensive contributions and possession, rather than looking at individual defensive contribution numbers, because then that would absolutely make sense if that happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, my complaint with Stack is actually just what Brun talked about, where he's kind of playing more as an 8 versus a 6, right? And that's just going to like we look at Bruno now. It's like he's probably going to have better averages this season on all the defensive contribution numbers compared to where he's at as a career, right? So
yeah,
that's impressive. But that's like already a very clear signal with like where Bruno is averaging like his numbers already. So like I think Bruno is like on 13 per game so far. So we're talking about a career average here of like 9 point. I mean, looks like maybe just around 9.5.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. And he's like far clear of that, whereas Stack is almost half of his career numbers. He's at like 7.66. Like those are the kind of things where I think, I don't know, we probably have to be quite reactive to that, because it's like a positional thing, not even the team thing necessarily. Anyone interesting as well? I think Xavi, just in terms of like the creativity piece, for sure.
Yeah. For Xavi, for creativity.
Jeremy as well.
But yeah, nothing much other than that. I think. Oh, I remember now. The only reason Stack was highlighted is I highlighted every single player that was added to the game post launch. So this includes every single player that basically made the move after FPL launched. So that's why you have a lot of players that you would not expect.
Yeah. Cool. In terms of forwards, we definitely have a lot more forwards, but I feel like the issue with all the forwards here is like you don't really know how many minutes they're gonna play. Like Wisa, like Waltemad, like sure Wisa can be the starting one, but it's like how quickly can that change? I feel like any preconception is just not very valuable until we see. Uche, that's a new Palace signing, right?
Yeah, he is.
So that's like a pretty significant player. I
Wait,
think that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, am I wrong?
I was trying to think. Fabio Silva and him posted the same statement on Instagram, right? So I just thought back to that. Mind. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was certainly interesting.
yeah.
I mean, he's like I don't even know if you can really quite consider him a forward, but he did play for Getafe last season. He's almost like he's got like if you look at his FBRF page ever, and I encourage people to have a look at this. Like he looks more like a DM posing as a forward because he's got
Man.
no XG to his name.
Oof.
But yeah, it could be creative.
Waldemar is interesting, right? We were talking about
yeah.
Bowen, and there might be someone else who could potentially get close because Bowen is not looking like getting anywhere close to those defensive contributions. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing because Waldemar actually likes dropping deep as a forward. But I mean, like realistically, at this band, you're still expecting nothing. Because I feel like, if I'm charting a midfielder at 7, I just think they're irrelevant to the game. So,
and to be fair to you, you made that point, I think, in our first episode this season, that people need to understand that even if you want to look at like Poisson distribution, that just means for 7 or 8 average, you're almost never going to get those thresholds. So I'm going to claim that Brobby is entirely going to be Fugazi because he's going to play for a very inferior team, and also he comes from a league where a lot of players have farmed XG for fun.
Yeah.
So
because if you play for the top teams in those leagues, it's like the disparity is larger than other big 5 European leagues outside of the French one, maybe, and PSG. Does anyone interest you here as a new signing? Like off the bat, I mean, Gyökeres technically is a new signing, but we all. I mean, actually, maybe let's touch on Gyökeres. Right? Like, how do you feel about him? Like, do you think he's not the real deal in terms of like the numbers that we're kind of looking at projected for him, what the models are kind of inferring?
I'm just having a hard time understanding why they are this much. Like, why do they stonk to this level? I do understand. I mean, okay, wait. I do understand why, but at the same time, I want to object, but I don't have any evidence to object right now. Because everything is going for him right now with the Saka stuff, with getting penalties already before that even happened, to be honest, and also with getting a center forward chair for 90 minutes until Havertz is back, and even if he does come back, I don't know how many minutes is going to take off him. So it's just everything is going for him right now. My only thing is, just like words, I want to back against him, but how much EV do I sacrifice to achieve that? With words, I could do that with next to no impact. So I was very happy with that.
Yeah.
But with Gyökeres, it's going to be very difficult to not do that without sacrificing expected value. So I said that in our group chat that if I choose to keep backing against Gyökeres, I have to say goodbye to any decent MD ranks, because that's not going to happen if I don't go for him. So it's what do you want to play for? And I don't know. Again, I have learned a lesson with Salah last season where I did go with some things that, like I said, like laziness on my part, but also my conviction. I don't know whether to double down on something like that or to get in line. So it's very weird. Like when you asked me that question, I was thinking the real answer is I just don't think like it's going to continue because the numbers are from an inferior league, and I think Arsenal's XG is going to go down. But to your point, if the fixtures are easy, you see what they did to Leeds, right? So I mean, they are always there. And my primary concern is their non-set piece XG, which I think is a valid concern right now. So maybe with more games, I'll have more confidence in him. But right now, I'm very happy to go without him.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because Arsenal's actually had what we thought would have tough fixtures to start, and they realistically had outside of the Leeds game, and Leeds already looked like a pretty good defense, or they're posing to be a good defense, and you know, hopefully they get found out soon because I need to get £20 from Broccoli. But yeah, finishing skill. So that's goodbye to Sun, which now improves the aspect ratio of the visualization. But we've got Brian Bobby here. No, I'm kidding. But any like, I mean, we didn't talk about Gyökeres too much, but like, yeah, he like, that's impressive, right? You know, one thing I've always wanted to kind of ponder is like, you know, when you move across, even amongst big five leagues, or let's say you're coming out of like even Liga, I feel like is there like, we always talk about this amongst ourselves. It's like some of the goalkeepers who post these like ridiculous shot stopping numbers in Liga. I don't even know if I can quite hold it up to par to some of the Premier League numbers, where it's like goalkeepers struggle to almost like stay afloat seasonally. You know, on those numbers. Shout out to Verbruggen, by the way, because he's awful. But that's another graphic. Anyone here who interests you?
Yeah, like you said, from the new ones, I think Brobbey is probably the only one. But again, of course, we welcome back Calvert-Lewin because Bamford left.
True.
And that actually left a gaping hole for the bottom feeders.
So Leeds actually did amazing recruitment to replace the same profile as Bamford, effectively.
Absolutely.
Fair play. I didn't actually know Solanke was this bad, by the way.
Yeah. I remember when I posted this initially in pre-season, someone commented and said that they did not expect him to be this slow.
Yeah.
And then they checked his FB ref, and every single season he has underperformed. So
wow, even the 19 goal season. Wow, he did.
Could you check? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, by 0.2, but still.
Yeah, but I mean, technically, yes.
yeah.
So
wow,
it is incredible.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, that João Pedro fella is really killing us. Hey, with his poor finishing, but
I'm trying to look at if I remember adding anyone, because unfortunately I could not highlight.
Xavi's here. He's pretty good. Sitting at that 1.1 band. Kaladzic as well, a new player to the league.
Wait, did he not get injured?
Yeah, no, but as in just in terms of like a new signing, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this apart from, I think, Brobbey and a couple of others that you mentioned. I don't think there are any particular, like Jeremy is close to 1, so there's like not too much to take from that. I am very interested in how Pinho plays, by the way. I really hope he resurrects his career, because it's just such a shame what injuries have done to him. So just hope he gets good consistent minutes in this team.
Yeah. I mean, actually, one player I find quite interesting, like Muniz, who's like on. Like, do you actually think because he signed a new contract, he's gonna start every single game for Fulham?
So that would actually reflect the confidence that market odds have in him now, because normally I would expect them to adjust only according to his actual returns, but they've actually adjusted more than his actual returns, which makes me think there is definitely something there that they are also reading into. My only concern is how long would it take to bench him for a game? Because like we've discussed last week, we are definitely interested in someone like him, but the problem is how quickly do you see that changing? It might be not as quickly as last season, because I think last season we saw it immediately flipped in a couple of game weeks. But this season I do see it sustain for longer. So hopefully he does get a run of games. But I don't know, but the fact that both of us are wildcarding now just means that we probably skip him for the wildcard until the second half of the season, I think. But I don't know.
Yeah, I almost think. I mean, he played 58 minutes versus Chelsea. Then again, Raul's actually going on international duty, which probably means Muniz is going to come back with good minutes. But yeah, it doesn't really inspire me ton of confidence his minutes, even though he's like well rated, as you said. And part of that too is just like Fulham's actually gotten a lot of goals through their center forwards. Like they tend to have good XG numbers, which I think also answers William's question in the chat too, and why there's probably that sort of projection plus the penalties. Most likely going to sit still between the penalty like the forwards, I guess, and Harry Wilson playing less minutes. But yeah, I think we shall move on. So the last, because we actually, do I have any visuals? I think that's it for visuals today. There's potential goalkeepers that we can look at in the future, but there weren't any. It was really just it would have been just to give credit to
agenda.
Yeah, you know what? That guy's like some sort of top right corner monster. Maybe I just didn't want to let you celebrate Lamens.
I mean, there is nothing to celebrate right now because if we have to see how, and again, there are so many caveats to that graph. The primary ones being obviously handling, process, claims, ball playing, one-on-ones. There's like I could list off more things than there are actually on the graph. So that is by no indication be all and end all. It's just very interesting to see because we already knew he was a monster on PSXG. Plus or minus, but or the delta. But it's very interesting to see how it actually pans out compared to everyone else. And Donnarumma is the other one. So, okay, I'm not going to speak much without the actual graph, but just to conclude on this. So, Donnarumma is very close to 0 on PSXG. So, that sort of matches up with what we've been seeing throughout his career, except for last year. Because I think last year is the only year where he's had like substantially positive PSXG performance throughout the season. But again, maybe City is going to be in a precarious position. I just hope that is the case, obviously, as a United fan. But yeah. Do you think he's going to start in 4? Like, what do we see happening to Trafford now?
I don't know. I mean, like, he's a goalkeeper. I feel like Pep is okay with throwing them in there. And you kind of have to. It's like, why are you signing him in the first place?
Those wages are insane, by the way. Like 500k, it's crazy.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I've definitely missed this.
Capology shows 250k, but that's because there's some like caveats to that. But apparently he's on twice that.
All right, that's right. Project Mbappe is just, I'm canceling that. Yeah. Having said, I'm just very short, so I don't know. Maybe I just crowdfund a person. Anyways, we're on Wildcard, right? Both of us. This is a default solve potentially, or is this on your minutes?
Default solve without. So wait, I did text you 2 things I did. Let me go through those. Give me a second. Apologies. Okay. Default minutes, Palmer Martinez banned.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I can take that.
So, yeah. And the reason is because as soon as I banned Palmer Martinez started showing up. So I had to do it again.
And this is no bench boost, right? So no
bench boost. That is the best. Yeah, the most important caveat. And I think next week what we can do is we can run the one with bench boost.
Yeah. Well, I'm bench boosting, so I'll probably share some drafts next week. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that is, I think, more relevant to most people. There are very few people in the same boat as I am, so it's not that relevant. But just to go through this, Fran, if you want to go through it for podcast listeners.
Yeah, sure. So Raya Dubravka as your goalkeeper pair, Anderson, Munoz, Virgil, Gabriel, Murillo. Murillo, tough one there. Midfield, Salah, Bruno, Jorginho, Anderson, Reinders, and then the front line, 4.4, Gyökeres, and Mateta.
So 2 things. Connor has already mentioned in the chat about Murillo. I changed Murillo to Lacora, and
yep, I
think Jorginho to someone. I forgot whether I could afford NDI with that draft.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did make those 2 changes because obviously there's no way I'm going there. So, yeah, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, on the bench boost makes sense, right? Because I think I think I honestly would just ban Nottingham Forest right now. I personally just think I would do it, but I don't think it might not be the right process. But I just think that there's enough question marks where if you think there's comparable picks right now that feel like they're still holding up their value, for defensive contributions or whatever, I would take that. I don't think Jorginho's a ban personally. I think his minutes are fine.
Same.
His
Same.
baselines, at least per markets, are good. Is it going to be like your classic volatile pick? Like, he's going to be like Kluivert last season. No penalties, but this is someone who is maybe not going to play 90 minutes a match, but just has tremendous value anyways, right? Playing 75 minutes a match or something like that. He might not even do that, right? But there could also be games where he hits that threshold at 90. Probably unlikely. So let's see. I think Reinders is still amazing. I think there's zero reason to doubt his minutes, and this is because everyone is falling like flies in this team. And honestly, he does a big job, which even Bernardo can't do with his sort of legs, in terms of being able to carry the ball out of midfield. And it can't just be a Rodri thing, right? So I just think with Gundo leaving as well, why are people so worried about his minutes? Tax me later, but I still think he's great. Funny thing, I did actually, like, I know you're gonna talk about it next episode, but yeah, like, I mean, generally speaking, I love this draft. And then the Virgil Gabriel thing is an interesting piece because this is very deep in midfield. Like, this is a lot of money spent, but then you don't have a 4.4 forward. So compared to, let's say, bench boost drafts, you're probably thicker on defense, thinner on front line. Do you like that, generally speaking?
Not the biggest fan. That is the first thing that stood out to me. I believe, I forgot to mention it when StatsDan in our group chat was talking about Lacroix and Munoz. My problem with that sort of draft is if I don't play Lacroix and Munoz every single week, am I benching Lacroix every now and then for 5.1 million? And then who are the other defenders? Like you said, they have to be Virgil and Gabriel, because otherwise I am benching one of them for Lacroix whenever the expected value for Lacroix is better. So it's just very painful, I would say, given the fact that I would have to bench one of them. So some tweaks I would definitely make are around those positions, where I would go from Murillo to maybe not even Lacroix to maybe just 4 million defender and just thin out my bench. Because I think my primary reason to wildcard was to have as less money on the bench as possible. And that would mean having a 4.4 million forward, a 4 million defender, and a 4 million goalkeeper. So I already have two of those things in this. So I just need to find how I can get to the third thing.
Yeah, generally speaking, I'm with you.
Yeah. So you know what the problem is with Forest? Like you said, until you actually ban them, there is no way they don't show up because of the two fixtures after the Arsenal game. I mean, those two fixtures should have some of the craziest EV we've seen. Like for a 2-game week sample, right? It has to be obscene if you put them at good minutes. So it is fair that reviews giving us those suggestions, because those games are crazy, right? If you look at them as and assume that players play those 2 games, you should be expecting like, I don't know, like 14 plus points and maybe like 10 plus EV from most players. So I don't know how to reconcile that.
Yeah. Do you have to head off potentially?
Who?
Do you have to head off potentially?
Oh yeah. I'm going to stick around for like 2-3 minutes, but yeah, I'll head off in a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only aspect of the draft I'd change. It is tough because I can kind of just see going big at the back for most of the season working out. End of the day, you just need captaincy solved, right? And then if you like trust that the 5.x's are giving you value in midfield, like there's not really a reason to shop above that price point. But then I guess the question marks long term are going to be like, if Semenyo is amazing, if you suddenly need to consider Saka and Palmer, like these types of picks later down the line, that's the kind of thing to ask. But the thing now with Gyökeres is like he now almost like holds down 9 million in your team permanently. So that's like guaranteed money that you can't spend anywhere. Whereas like I think maybe like if we weren't so keen on, let's say, Watkins fixtures at the start of the season and didn't think Gyökeres' minutes were as dicey as they were, we probably would have spent like a lot less money in the forwards, which I think some people have readopted in terms of like their opinions. So yeah, like I think the draft almost makes itself. A lot of people are going to be on Gyökeres Mateta. I think that's just almost a lock. And then, you know, like Salah Bruno feels like a lock for us, at least. I can see some people going without Bruno, to be honest, because you can kind of chance maybe some of the other games like Liverpool midfielders, for example. And equally, like, there's the consideration of Haaland, but it's very tough to fit, especially I think if you have bench boost left. If you don't have a bench boost, I think there's like you can raise the point, right? And you can kind of like angle for Haaland, but at the same time, nothing is stopping you from just doing 2 free transfers to Haaland and then abandoning your free at 6 plans. Because if you start with Reinders in your team, you know, it's not too far removed to say that you can just go. I mean, could you do something like maybe if you have some money in the bank, for example, like you just do Salah to Haaland and then KDH comes in, or Josh King, he still plays. Like, it's possible.
I was thinking of Josh King, by the way. Like, Josh King is legitimately a good option. Given the fact that you don't have to play most weeks. By the way, thank you, Napstas, for the membership.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like you said, the Haaland thing is bugging me a lot, in the sense that it depends on if you want to free hit 6. If you want to free hit 6, then definitely he won't be in your team. So when you solve for wildcard 4 without the bench boost, you have to look at if you want to free hit or not. And I think that determination has to be made before you actually end the game, like end this period between game week 3 and 4. Because once game week 4 passes, it's not like going to help you at all. Like you said, you at least need to have a contingency where you do Salah to KDH. I think is probably the best contender, and then you do something like Gyökeres to Haaland. But then the question is, do you want Gyökeres for what? Nottingham Forest, and what's the other game?
Not really. It's just like their averages fixtures, and then later down the line it gets better. Like when he plays West Ham, etc., like 7+. Exactly. That's when it gets good.
Exactly. So it's kind of very, very, I don't know, muddled. I think you need to make that choice now and then live with it. I mean, you're not going to get everything anyway. That's the cliched thing to say, but it really is true, even without the bench boost, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, like, that backline sets you up extremely long term. But I think, if you replace Murillo with like a Senesi or something, then I just like that team, really, you know.
Yeah. Senesi is actually brilliant, by the way. I don't know if we touched on him before, but having looked at his minutes and the fact that probably he's going to be still the number 1 center back with Diakite.
Yeah, because they signed some 18-year-old Serbian, right? Some beast, but it's like...
I was asking more about him because I saw his name, and he has no stats, obviously, on FBref, but it did feel like maybe there's some sort of threat. They also signed Alex Jimenez, if I remember that correctly.
They did.
There's pullback on both sides, I think. So there's maybe some competition for Truffert. So maybe Truffert is not that much of an option now. But again, I just feel like all of these are backups. I don't think they are necessarily going to threaten minutes until there are actual injuries and stuff. I just feel like you've seen with Iraola last season that he's ready to play most of his backline, like, for the majority of the games, right? It's not like he's chopping and changing again and again.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And then I think that piece in terms of, like, I guess if you want to keep yourself like free hit flexible-ish, like suddenly you want to go Haaland in a few weeks time, like I guess there's always the possibility of just simply like maybe like not going triple Palace, which you already haven't done, right? I feel like a lot of us have probably come to that conclusion that we probably just want 2 Palace. So yeah, but I don't know. I think I'm happy to respond to some chat questions. Are you going to stick around, or do you have to head?
I'm going to drop off, but Trini said, does he know? So I hope that was intended for me, but if it is, let me know what it was. I'll catch you guys later.
I don't think it is. All right, we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, guys. See you in a bit. Bye.
Sweet. So let's just do a little bit of Q&A. Oh, cool. We have Shad in there who's left us, but I think just to close on the wildcard piece too, I mean, I'm going to bench boost, so I'm going to have a slightly different draft, and it's not going to have Murillo in the team, to be honest, but I can't see me going Haaland, personally. I can't see myself going Watkins either, but I can still see the value of... I mean, there's 2 types of solves right now, I think, or structures, right? So if you go Watkins, Gyökeres, Mateta, and then just go cheaper in the midfield, slightly cheaper on defense, I think you can achieve... because there's a crucial move that all of us would like to make on paper, which is how to get to Palmer on Game Week 9. And I think if you go Semenyo in the midfield plus a Thiago, you can shift off Mateta on 9 and Semenyo on 9, and you have an elegant way of getting to Palmer with 2 free transfers. you also can do what I said, which is the Watkins, Gyökeres, Mateta draft, and then just move Watkins plus a 5.9-ish midfielder and above into Palmer and someone else, like let's say a 4.4 once again. But yeah, that's the kind of like closing note I'd say in terms of these kind of lines. Unfortunately, it's an inelegant solution, because I think if you go Bruno-less, you're gonna have to use the transfer to Bruno. If you start without Gabriel, you actually might want to go Virgil to Gabriel on 7, so that requires a transfer. If you don't do anything that I said, and you don't go for Watkins, you don't go for Semenyo, so these are what I would argue are placeholders for Palmer more than anything. Or even, let's say, if you really want to go João Pedro, then, you know, you can obviously just suddenly later on maybe do 3 transfers and then get towards Palmer if you want to do that. Or just maybe, you know, if we don't rate Palmer that much, then you can kind of go towards the João Pedro a little bit smoother. But otherwise, if you do want Palmer, and let's say Palmer is your captain for 9, and I think later down the line he's probably also going to be your captain for 11, I believe, then, you know, there are not elegant solutions to get there. So I personally prefer a 2 free transfer solution. I like Thiago a lot, and so I'm going to go for that. But let's go into chat, right? So starting from the top, Omar, yeah, the Sarr thing was just sad in terms of the yellow card. It was already painful enough. And then getting the news a few days late about how he has a grade 2 hamstring injury was just awful, because I lost a lot of price rise potential there. Mel was saying if there's any 6.3 million mids playing. I don't think so. I mean, all the shoppable mids are like below Mitoma's price point, right? Or I mean, like above Mitoma's price point, for example, in that case, and then you look for something else. Evening, Harry. Hey, Marcelo, how are you? Any thoughts on Jane Anthony? I've got no interest in him. I mean, like, obviously his underlyings look good so far, but he literally plays for Burnley, so I don't care at this moment in time, unless he's just going to ball out that massively for the rest of the season. Joseph, I think, making some pointed comments about how Mel is a Tillman's owner potentially. Marku, yeah. Cayman, thank you so much for supporting content. Hope you're doing well. Forest and Villa, biggest disappointment. Definitely, yeah. As teams, well, I don't even know if Forest is the biggest disappointment so far. I think Villa's massively. I think even Newcastle, under the radar, how bad they've done, right? Like, we're expecting goals from a team that should be vying for top 5 in Newcastle, and they don't look anywhere near it on that side of the pitch. Their defense has looked incredible, but it's also like, this is not Tank Commander City. Like, you're not trying to battle relegation. You're trying to establish yourself as a team that consistently makes Champions League potentially, right? Obviously, they have 2 new massive signings, so let's just see what happens there. Joseph making a funny joke about Eze. Fair. William talking about how, I mean, the 17.5 goals from a Fulham striker, I don't think is that obscene, to be honest, but I think you definitely should bet the under, right? Like, for example, if you kind of want to attack that, I mean, the simple way to address that is just simply betting the under on both the players combined, and then hoping you probably reap the rewards of that, right? To fully realize like what you're trying to say there in terms of not like rating how many goals the forwards would score. I'm trying to think about last season as well for Fulham, like how many goals were actually scored. I think from memory, actually, they probably scored quite a lot. Like, I think Jimenez probably had at least 10 goals. I'm going to check Fulham 24-25. Yeah, so last year, those 2 same forwards combined scored 20 goals. So I don't think that's too surprising, because, as I said, they're a team that builds a lot of their chances through the center. So when you look at Muniz and Raul's season underlyings, they're really, really good. Like, Raul had 0.35 NPXG, which is low, but then Muniz had 0.54, and he was more of a sub. And then I think they're one of the few striker pairings in the league where you'd probably say the penalties still stay with them, especially with Harry Wilson now not playing so many minutes. So that might just be simply like, that could be like a basis point for what they've set as an expectation, right? But yeah, I think it just comes down to goal share for that specific team. Not necessarily the case that Fulham's expected to score that many goals. And when you kind of look across the line, like for example, like Newcastle have 2 strikers that also share a lot of goals between them, right? So that's more. Obviously, Newcastle a better team, but Fulham as well. Like I think even their underlyings last season are just underrated across the board. Like they're just a solid squad. But if you want to bet the under, bet the under. How come no one's really including NJ, Sihan? I think part of that is actually just Everton, right? So Everton don't really fit bench boost 5 like a glove. And then at the same time, I guess with NJ, it really just comes down to whether you actually think Mitoma's better, I think. Like if Mitoma is what we trust to be, real, then there's just the same value there, and he's less annoying to kind of fit within a bench boost 5 structure. And then equally, the same can be said about those Brighton baselines, right? So unfortunately, with them being so high, we suddenly like rate all the 5.8, 5.9 Brighton players, and we almost think that Paqueta is like a dream pick at 5.9 as well. So like there might be a lot of draft structures where you just don't want to spend beyond 6 on a player because there's so much value in the 5.x's. Maybe that's kind of my answer to that. But I don't think there's anything stopping you from Njai. And at the same time, also Dewsbury Hall's 5 million, right? So if you don't like how Njai presents himself on 5, and you still want to get someone who actually fits the team well and just generally has good EV, like Dewsbury Hall's there. As far as banning Rutter, yeah, we spoke about that live as well. Trinity, thanks. Patience with Murillo. I think it's okay to not be patient with Murillo because Murillo's value as a defense as a defender in the game is purely coming from defensive contributions. Like if I compare to the rest of the field, right? Like Tarkowski is someone who once again is exactly like that. Like these are players where, based on the averages that they got last season, and I'm sure how we're modeling them, you're saying that 50% of the 2 points per match, roughly speaking, on a horizon, so like one expected value per week and maybe around 12, right, comes down to these defensive contributions. And if you're not even averaging like almost like Murillo's averaging like something like 6, right, which that can go up, but even if it goes up, then that's a tremendous difference. Like we're talking now about how I'm expecting him to get maybe 5 to 10% of the time getting defense contributions versus 50% of the time. So that's almost dropping him towards the level of like some picks who are probably like genuinely 4.5 defenders, and that's not good enough, right? Because their defense isn't that good. Like their expected goals conceded numbers are pitiful. So yeah, I think it's okay to ignore Murillo. But obviously, like if you own Murillo, you're not wildcarding, for example, it makes a lot of sense to hold. Like you're going to play him 5 and 6. Like there's absolutely no reason not to. And if anything, like these teams like Burnley and Sunderland still give you the opportunities to get defensive contributions against them because they're not going to like keep the ball away from you the whole time. But maybe you keep the ball away from them the whole time, and that could be that's basically the issue right now with Nottingham Forest. 5 at the back shot and no benching defenders. I don't think you need to go 5 at the back. Obviously, a lot of defenders have done well so far, but like a lot of defenders have simply just gotten some crazy hauls, right? Like if we look at, I guess, the points totals in the game so far, and like what's the best projected team that we could have possibly built. Like right now, you could have a 5 at the back that has like 2 Forest defenders, which a lot of people have started the season with, and they would be doing nothing for you right now. Whilst at the same time, obviously on the flip side, you've got players like Zanesi getting 14 pointers, like Aitnuri and Kukureya getting bonus games plus clean sheets. Like there's still good, like the midfielders will still score points, right? Forwards will still score points. Like João Pedro's done well. There's some midfielders who've done like a lot of work so far too. I just think long term it'll probably average out, where the question's just going to be about, do you play a 4-4-2 in a rotated structure, not necessarily a 5? And I think that's quite viable. Like I think that's just generally what's going to happen a lot. So like the kind of deep team that I have projected in my mind with the bench boost in hand, I think like half of the weeks in my future I could be playing maybe a 4-back. But yeah, I think give enough time for the midfield and forward picks to cook. Like there's plenty of them who will do well in the future. It is a bit revisionist as well because it's like Watkins makes a lot of sense, but it's are we just going to react to that and just not go Watkins? That sort of thing. Jay Wavy saying he's confused if you should wildcard 4 or not. I don't think wildcard for the price rises because you've already missed them. But wildcard, I think if you have like a lot of issues like injuries or you're unhappy with your defense and you think your defense can change a lot. Not to mention as well, in terms of like going big at the back as well, like, I mean, some of the Spurs defense picks have actually just been really disappointing too. So yeah, it's not like every avenue towards points has been sort of through defense. Like you can still have, I would say, a pretty competent looking defense the last few weeks and gotten no points from them, which I think has been the case for the majority of us. And then people have been pretty lucky with auto subs too. Like, if we think about it, like, I don't know, what's a good example? Like maybe like Dorgu, for example. Dorgu missed out versus Burnley, right? And Dorgu was probably one of the best value picks last week. If you think about it, a lot of people just got some crazy good auto sub last week, and that's not because they should have played all their defenders, but it's just because actually if Dorgu played football, he would have gotten like literally 1 FPL point because he is absolutely terrible, or he was going to be terrible. Well, maybe Dallo actually got an assist, so maybe he should have got 4 points, right? But he still considered 2 goals to Burnley on paper. So it's like you can still play good defenders with good games, and they can still do poorly, just like midfielders and forwards have done so far. So I think, yeah, let's not overreact necessarily. On Trini, I think you're probably speaking to that same point. Marcelo's talking about, do you transfer out Haaland for Gyökeres game week 7 as you want Watkins game week 7? I mean, I think if you go Haaland, you're almost emotionally saying that Gyökeres isn't really too viable, although I guess you could go Gyökeres, Haaland, Salah. I don't really know how that's affordable. I don't think that is in theory. It probably means you don't have Bruno, for example. So I guess that's hard to achieve. I personally think you don't need to have Watkins on game week 7 at this point. Like he has an amazing game, but it doesn't mean like it's like on paper really a similar quality game in my mind to Mateta in game week 4, right? And if I think about the midfielders as well, like who are we talking about generally speaking? Like Watkins is at the price points of, well, it's hard to compare, right? Because there's no like good 9 million midfielders, but even like, for example, a Wirtz or a Gakpo, like on paper for game weeks 4 and 5 could have enough value to match like what Watkins brings to the table in game week 7. And it's not like Watkins has looked, or Aston Villa look like they need to be kept, right? Because by transferring Watkins in or having Watkins on the wild card, like the plan still probably should be to sell him on game week 8, like which is kind of what I was talking about in terms of the structure, where if you go with Watkins, Gyökeres, and Mateta, you still sell him probably a little bit earlier than, let's say, in this manual structure, you sell him on game week 8. So yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that point of, look, your draft is compromises, every draft is compromises. You're not going to captain Watkins on game week 7. I don't think. Like most of the time, if you own Gyökeres, like you're probably just going to captain Gyökeres in that week, especially like versus West Ham, and that's kind of the big consideration. Or right, you just do Bruno, right? Sunderland at home. So because Watkins is not really a captainable option for me, at least, I don't think I'm going to go and own Watkins because I don't see that same sort of value. All right, let's see. Murillo didn't get any def on last year till game week 5, but that's not how it works, though. 3 of the opponents that he played so far, he got 5 out of 6 DEFCON games from, like DEFCON points for last season. So it's more about the opponents that you play, less so, I mean, what you did 1 to 5 last season. And then also similarly, I think if that's how FPL worked, we wouldn't have bought him. Senesi is all I wanted Murillo to be. Absolutely. So is Lacroix to an extent, right? Lacroix should actually have 6 DEFCON points, not 4. And I do feel quite bad for Lacroix owners, because I think the adjustments could have easily been made within the hour where the window closed. And we talked about Senesi as well. Thank you, Napstars, once again for the gifted membership. If you have a choice not to wildcard, you definitely should not wildcard. I think, look, I mean, people are forced to wildcard due to injuries. It's nothing, like, that's just natural to FPL, right? I don't think there's anything bad about wildcarding in 4, because when it comes to like fixture runs as well, you need to also think about people are still going to be putting on top of that like a free hit package on top of this. Their team structure might not already be suited to the curve. I think if you're on a Wirtz kind of team structure, you don't really need to wildcard because you're just going to see out the 2 Liverpool games and then you wildcard 6 if you think you need it, or you wildcard later if you don't. But then some people, for example, like you're almost embarking on a bad Watkins fixture now, and you can just revisit whether you want to own Watkins and Rodgers and things like that, and it's totally fine to do so. The same thing with, let's say, some of the Spurs defenders who look like they just have less value compared to the rest. especially since some of us like don't own Arsenal or Liverpool defenders, that sort of thing. So it's a good time to revisit that too, and I think that's okay. Especially Arsenal, right? Because Arsenal kind of fits that free at 6 piece. In terms of Chelsea too, it's like not an awful time to honestly consider like not having Chelsea for a bit. Like, sure, João Pedro looks amazing, but if you're free hitting on 6 as well, you're not going to own João Pedro, I think, because you're taking away one of the better fixtures for Chelsea. Right? That's like Brighton at home. So instead, like, you're dealing with a fixture run that's basically Brentford away, United away, Liverpool at home, Nottingham Forest away. Like, that's pretty tough. And that's what I'm trying to say when it comes to Chelsea. Like, you can revisit them on 9, I think, on a wild card, and I think that's justifiable. Sure, João Pedro's done absolutely amazing. But I don't think he's game breaking still, even though he's like, I guess, the highest owned pick in the game right now. You know, I just think, yeah, you take away 6, you probably want to revisit him on 9 if he has perfect minutes still. But then also, like, yeah, losing potentially penalties is a bit of a dampener. And then Palmer will be back soon, and that will change things again. No free hit, 2 free transfer Haaland means no Watkins. Yeah, but then obviously you just own Haaland permanently, right? And then you benefit from, like, I mean, you'd rather have Haaland on 6 than Watkins on 7. So you should be getting rid of Mateta or the third forward for Haaland, that plan. I agree with that, Hun. Munoz is 2 Palace players in 1, potentially, right? But I mean, Lacroix still looks incredible, because Lacroix is almost like, I think if you look at the kind of defensive contribution leaders last year and this year, like, he's just top for a lot of those averages. Napstars is saying if Joelinton is not fit to start in Gameweek 4, Ramsey will play alongside. Well, I mean, Ramsey also might have a small injury, right? I'm not sure if that's if he's fine, but Ramsey will play left center mid alongside Guimaraes and Tonali. If Joelinton's fit, he will start in midfield, and Ramsey may then play left wing instead of Barnes. God, that's awful. Is that really what someone said about Newcastle? I still can't quite understand how Barnes is not starting games, or how you'd even come to a conclusion that you shouldn't start Barnes in a match, especially with Gordon being out. But I think all this to say that maybe on free hit 4, like, I guess Newcastle have one of the best games on paper, but it's like you don't even know quite how to attack it properly, right? So I'm trying to think about it. Like, I guess you almost need to just find the forward who starts and then just chill. I think that's probably the best solution. I know there's some midfielders who can obviously like pick a lot of value, but if you think like Weiss is going to start, I think I'd just go there. And I'd probably actually go for their defense, like, more so than anything. Like Schär is still quite interesting from that aspect. Like Bruno Guimaraes is going to have good value though. Like, if you want someone nailed, and you should triple up that way. I can kind of see that working out. Trini, are you free at 6 is one of the questions. But I've actually, yeah, sorry if I've waffled too much, but I'm just trying to answer questions, I guess. Forget Palmer, just go João Pedro 9. I mean, once again, I don't think Palmer's that forgettable. Like, I mean, we've watched Palmer with João Pedro in the Club World Cup, and Palmer was absolutely incredible too. You know, let's wait and see, I guess. If you are wildcarding in 4, what's a better game week? I kind of think if you're, as I said, on a word structure, it kind of makes sense to wildcard in 6, or you can just delay it till 13, which is sort of like everyone's original plan. Trop saying thoughts on Paqueta versus using that slot on defenders such as Tarkowski. You like Paqueta? I prefer Paqueta, personally speaking. I think Tarkowski is perfect at the same time, but Everton actually don't look like a particularly great defense. If I'm honest, like, I think probably like conceding that much open play, expected goals versus Wolves is not a good sign for a team that we kind of on paper hold quite highly as a defense. Like, it could very well be the case that we just think that they're a better team, but actually it's more tilted towards offense than defense now, right? Trini says maybe start with João Pedro, Mateta, Gyok, and that way you don't need to get JP in 9. True, but then I guess if you go JP, Mateta, and Gyok, like, do you have a nice convenient way to get towards Palmer? If you need to get Palmer, maybe you don't. I guess if you start with João Pedro, like, what are we saying? Like, he's basically the Semenyo replacement, so you need to shop for a midfielder, I guess. Once again, I guess the question in that case and context is probably going to be, do you think Pedro's better than Semenyo? Probably, right? Which he very well could be. Or, I guess you still bin Mateta in that case, right? So then the case is, I guess, yeah, okay, fine. I kind of see the point. So you go João Pedro, and then you bin off Mateta, probably, right? and then you just need to have a 5.9 in place, and that's it, you're done. That could make sense, to be fair. I can kind of see that. But it's like, don't you want to take João Pedro on? I feel like most of us are wildcarding without João Pedro, right, in the team. Otherwise, we're probably not wildcarding, let's be honest. We'd probably have a lot better picks in our teams, and we would have taken price rises. Maybe the plan was to wildcard all along. Like, I know some people like Dan have done that. And he's had João Pedro Kitike. Yeah, I can kind of see the vision there. So you just go Mateta until, let's say, Gameweek 8, and then you bid him off on 9. So it's kind of the same plan. And then you keep João Pedro going forwards perpetually. That could work. Yeah. I'm kind of curious because I think Semenyo and João Pedro like have similar-ish expected value, right? So I'll be curious to see like if I can run some Sols and JP pops. But I also just, as I said, want to take on João Pedro's ownership. So it makes more sense from my perspective in the rank that I'm at to not bringing in a 60% owned player if I think that someone can bring the same sort of value in let's say, Semenyo for a little bit less ownership. I appreciate there's no elegant solution to like finding some really cheap pick who has like 9 million and a good placeholder, or 7 million and a good placeholder, right? Like Watkins is owned, Semenyo's owned, João Pedro's owned, but João Pedro's just the most highly owned pick at this moment in time. When Trigger was ripping me for João Pedro. Yeah, but I mean, it's like I would usually just do no João Pedro. Yeah, best player in the league is obviously like a massive exaggeration. Otherwise, obviously, he should just be betting on the João Pedro over in terms of like goals, right? Bruno G, I think for me on free at 4, I think that makes sense. Like you're never gonna feel bad about his minutes. I do think that like you're almost like asking for a goal from Bruno G like feels odd, but you know there's still value there for the kind of price that he's at, and if that's what is needed to like round out your draft, like that could make sense. Equally though, like Everton picks make a lot of sense on free at 4. I think, you know, like we don't really rate Aston Villa too much. Like is it that crazy to maybe go like an NJ potentially, but like versus Villa? That could be like up for consideration, I would imagine. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Cool. Thank you guys so much. I think that's kind of the end of that's chat. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining on the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the session. Do feel free to like, do subscribe. That does really help support the channel. And if you're listening on a podcast, you know, rate us 5 for 5, please. Thank you very much. Take care, guys, and I'll see you guys in a bit.